Delete them or
Just shutting down and rebooting them clears it out some.
Yeah, it clears
oh,
out.
there I'm off. Dang it, I'm up. Okay.
That's strange.
So I gotta go in.
Maybe it's a sign that we're
restart.
not going to talk about them tonight.
Disconnect. That's okay, I brought all my paper.
If I had
Okay.
an Irish accent, I would say it like Chris said that.
Welcome back,
I
everyone.
tried turning it off and on again.
We're going to now jump into our item number 6, which is the comprehensive amendments of the Centerville Municipal Code, which our city attorney, Lisa Romney, has been dutifully working on for a very long time.
8 months.
And,
But who's
and
counting?
the council discussed this last time, but felt that having all of the amendments presented at once was overwhelming to tackle. And so tonight, we're breaking it up into parts, and tonight we're going to discuss, we're not going to take action because we're going to pass the ordinance at the end of discussing all of the amendments. So tonight we'll just spend a few minutes discussing the Municipal Code Comprehensive Amendments.
And I did want to highlight as well that I listed this as a public hearing, just because if people want to comment on it, they can. So you may want to have that after.
Okay.
I wonder who left his phone.
I don't see that here that it's public
Lee's
hearing, but
Gablins, he'll remember.
we
then
serve-
maybe somebody
overrode your.
overruled me. Okay, then you don't have to have.
But
you
I don't
definitely
think-
don't have to because we already had it on
Yeah.
Title 15.
Yeah,
So that's
and it doesn't
fine.
look like we have too much of a
Okay.
issue anyway there, but. Okay, so let's just go title by title. Does that sound all right with everyone? Any comments, questions on Title I? General provisions, general city
Do you have any
provisions.
call-outs specifically you want us to be aware of?
So one thing that the council did ask is that I send out a version that has more highlighting on those that are kind of substantive changes. So really the changes, you can see there's only 3 substantive changes in Title I, but one that I do want to highlight is on page 11 of 13. It's section 1.06.130 on administrative hearings. This is for a civil penalty. If we issue a civil penalty to someone, in section 120, we say that they have to pay it within 20 days. And then in 130, we say if you want to appeal it, you have to appeal it in 10 days. We went through this same issue in the zoning code and recommended to make those consistent, so you pay it in 20 or you appeal it in 20. So that's why you'll see I'm changing it from 10 days to 20 days, because we ran into some confusion with people when they want to appeal, and they think they have 20 days and they only have 10. So, and that's the same thing we did in the zoning code. Otherwise, the other
Consistency's good.
changes I don't think are really substantive.
In all of the title, okay. Any questions in Title I? All right, moving on to Title II, Government and City Council.
Title II, what I do want to highlight is the highlighted section on page 9, section 2.03.070 regarding campaign finance. The city manager had also asked me about this, but essentially in House Bill 83 and House Bill 290 of the 2016 legislative session, they did go back and make some changes to the campaign finance rules. And the only way we differed previously from the state law was that we required a campaign finance statement before and after the primary. Well, the state law went ahead and did that for all cities, which we actually recommended. If you remember, in 2015, we went and I spoke before the legislative committee, and so I think the league followed up on those recommendations and just said, yeah, why don't we have all cities do it for the primary? So my recommendation is just to follow state law, so we're just making a reference to that.
Okay.
But that was a good change. So actually, yeah, that's the only major change in Title II, unless you had any other questions.
Didn't we actually talk about that last time?
Yes, you brought that up. So we talked about that a little bit.
Okay. Title III.
Title III, let's see if I have anything I want to highlight. I did add in Chapter 3, so this is page 11 and 3.03.020 and 030, well, 020, I just added a section that said, look, all of our committees that are created by ordinance need to follow the open meetings. They actually do, but I just wanted to put that in here. I noticed we didn't have that when I was doing some training. I also made some more specific references on governmental immunity, because there's actually 3 areas of the statutes that govern governmental volunteers. So I specifically referenced all 3 of those.
Are you in Title III or 4?
Title III,
Okay.
administrative.
So, Katie is here as Marcia's representative?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, oh, are you still back in,
Yeah,
On city recorder?
I'm really looking at all of the things.
yeah, so it says the city recorder or his or her designee.
Mhm.
So we, by contract, designate someone. Our city recorder doesn't attend all the meetings. She's grateful for that.
Yes.
The one other thing I wanted to highlight, well, the next one, I guess, in Title III is whoever's the liaison to the Whitaker Museum. I am making one small change on the board duties of the Whitaker. It currently says that the Whitaker shall review any adopted long-range plan on an annual basis, which I think is a great goal, but just in case they don't do that, I just wanted to take out on an annual basis. So they really should prepare and recommend a long-range plan, but we probably don't do that on an annual basis, so I'm
Thank
recommending.
you, because we went through and took out a lot of those shalls
Okay,
in our
good.
meeting.
Good idea.
Appreciate that.
Flexibility is great. Anything else in 3?
3, you will see I highlighted a lot of changes in 3.05.060, which is the Government Records Act. We also had two bills, one in 2015 and one in 2016, that amended those appeal procedures for government records. So I just made it, those amendments are state law, and that's it.
Okay. Title 4,
Okay.
Justice Court.
So Title IV is the Justice Court. I will say that I sent all of the relevant chapters to each department head and the Justice Court judge, and he did get back to me on a couple things and just had some questions and corrected a typo where it said trail instead of trial, which Steve also caught. So the changes to the jurisdiction of the Justice Court in 402.040 is statutory. I'm just trying to mirror the language that was a 2016 amendment. And also highlighting for them in trial facilities 050 that the court shall provide notice to the public that the proceedings are being recorded. That was Senate Bill 42 from 2016, and the judge is aware of that.
All right.
I don't think we have a comparable notice to let people know here, but at the court you have to. They also changed that if you're going to be a justice court judge, you should have a degree from a law school. That was previously not required. Ours is law trained and a lawyer.
Yes.
Okay, and those are the
And then 5?
major changes on 4. Now, Title V, you'll see a number of changes, and these are all, most of them, I think, are just statutory amendments that throughout the code. So let's see. One thing we would like, so now I'm looking in Chapter 3, which is talking about budgets. And Steve and I would like to look more closely at these amendments as to when a public hearing has to be held on the tentative budget. Is it when we're reviewing it? Do we, adopt the tentative budget and have that hearing? So that's 030 and 040. We will look into that. I made these changes based upon the way I read the new state statutes, but we may want to come back with some revisions after we
Yeah, more
talk about it.
specifically, we have understood the law to require that you set a public hearing between when you adopt the tentative budget, you set a public hearing for a future meeting that you hold before you adopt a final budget. But the language of the law, which has been like this apparently for some time, I'm not mistaken, Lisa, you pointed out it really hasn't changed. It could be interpreted to mean you need to have a public hearing before you even adopt the tentative budget.
Well, the law did change, and that's what's unfortunate, is the
Oh,
language
that's when
previously.
it became confusing then.
Yeah, the language previously said, each tentative budget shall be reviewed, considered, and tentatively adopted by the governing body in any regular meeting or special meeting. And then the new language says, a governing body in any regular public hearing or special public hearing shall review and tentatively adopt each tentative budget. I don't know if they just accidentally stuck the public hearing in there, or,
And I think that's probably was not the intent, but I need to make a contact with the state and find out, do we need to schedule a public hearing?
Have we made a
Before we
note to do
adopt
that?
the
Or-
Pardon?
Have we made a note? to
I've got a
ask?
note, yeah.
yeah, so I think those, we may bring back some changes for the final adoption, because I think Steve brought up a good question on that in his review. Yeah, and all of these, oh, I do want to say, I rearranged the chapters in Title V. Let me get to the beginning here. Because we had sales and use tax, and then we went telecommunications license tax, energy sales, RAP tax 2007, and then we went back to telecommunications, and then back to RAP tax 2015. So I just reorganized those so the RAP taxes are together and the telecommunication chapters are together. So you'll see those have been in different, they're in different chapters now.
Sounds like a good idea.
But yeah, I think it makes more sense to me. So let me just check and make sure there weren't any big changes in this title, other ones we want to talk about. Nope, I think that was it.
So I had one question with RAP tax. It would be on page 16, top where it says the city council adopted a new ordinance providing for the imposition, collection, and distribution. We're okay that we don't specify the percentages by ordinance. We did that as for the RAP tax.
Right, so in the RAP tax, I have tried to stay pretty general. The law requires you to, you can spend RAP tax funds for reasons allowed by law and reasons that you put in the original ballot proposition that went to the voters. And so we recommend you keep that broad as this, but then you can internally say, well, these are the allocations we want. I recommend you don't put it in ordinance, so you can revisit that.
Okay, okay, that's where I was confused. Was it's the language is imposition, collection, and distribution.
So are you saying it's now more broad than you used to say it was?
No, I'm not making any changes here, and let me pull up the broader, if I was on the internet. Let me just look in these chapters and give you an example, because there is a section that says, here's how we're going to use them. So, chapter 8. Energy sales. Yeah, it'd be a lot faster online. Okay, so, and we have two RAP taxes. I left them both in. We have the 2007 and the 2015. I thought I'll just leave them because we're right at the edge of those. But we have a section on collection, and I think that was the one you were reading from, George. And then the next one is use of funds. And then it says all monies collected from the 2007 RAP tax shall be used for financing recreational, cultural facilities within the city, blah, blah, blah. But then we also say within that, or the interlocal, providing for recreational, cultural facilities or ongoing operating expenses of cultural organizations. So again, that's just reading right from the statute. And then we also have one, distribution of funds, where we made our intent for the 2007 that most of those, the primary portion shall be utilized for the financing of the Performing Arts Center and ongoing operating expenses of that facility. That's the 2007, but then in the 2011, we were much broader, saying, no, the primary purpose is no longer for that, but just for all those reasons allowed by law.
You said 2011.
2015.
15. You know what you meant.
Yeah.
Okay. Any
Yeah.
other questions? All right, we sure appreciate your work on that, Lisa. And are we going to schedule the next chunk for next time?
Yeah, so we'll do
Okay.
6 through 10 next time. Was that highlighting PDF valuable? Okay, I will do that again. I was excited that I finally learned how to highlight in a PDF. I think Adobe Reader just finally made it available, but anyway, I can do that.
I think we're laughing with you.
No, I leaned over and said, Lisa, you need to get a life.
Okay, thank you so much. Item number 7, city manager's report. Steve.
I've proposed to you a budget calendar involving the preparation and review and adoption of the budget. One change to it, the very first item, which I said would get department heads their worksheets on March 6th. They actually got them last week, about March 1. So, but the rest of this I'm proposing to you for your reaction. I do have to, by law, give you my proposed budget by the first meeting in May, which is May 2nd. And then you have to adopt the budget no later than June 22nd, I believe it is. So the meeting that occurs before that is June 20th, would be adoption. A public hearing would occur on June 6th. We'd advertise that in advance via the utility bill insert, a budget newsletter that we'd insert in the utility bill, which is how we've done that the last couple of years, last few years. In terms of budget work sessions, I'm suggesting that you have one in April. I've proposed either the 11th or the 25th, which would be the off Tuesdays, the second or fourth Tuesdays, so that you could have 2 or 3 hours on this, on key budget matters that I would have liked your direction on, including the insurance issue, because before then we'll have proposals to consider, and you'll need to give some direction as to how we handle that in the budget and which way are we going to go with our renewals.
So this may have to be revised, subject to the outcome of that public hearing on the tentative budget prior to its acceptance,
Right.
right? The schedule.
You mean,
Well, the schedule's fine, it's just procedurally, how will we?
I'm not sure what you're asking, Bill.
If
What-
you find out from the state that you have to have a budget,
That you have to have a
Hearing
public hearing
on the
prior to
tentative.
accepting a tentative budget.
Oh, yeah, we would show,
We could just
notice one.
plug that in.
we could show that on either the 2nd when I present it, or we could show it on the 16th, or I probably would show it on the 2nd, and if you wanted to postpone it 2 weeks, you could, but we.
No, I was just commenting,
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
works the best, but.
It looks
Right.
good to me. My only feedback is that I do have other commitments on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays, and so maybe if we do a 5 o'clock work session, then it doesn't.
How,
conflict.
when would you have to be through if we did it
On the
the
2nd Tuesdays, 7, and on the 4th Tuesdays by 8.
Tuesday?
and I have the museum both the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays, and that's-
Second and fourth?
yes.
Do you guys always start at 7?
Museum, both?
The museum does storytelling on the 2nd Tuesday, and then board meeting on the 4th.
And the time?
So that's 7 o'clock on the 2nd Tuesday and 6:30 on the 4th.
So if we could start at 5 and keep it to a couple hours.
Say those again, Stephanie.
7 on the 2nd Tuesday.
Starts at 7. You have a 7 PM.
I have a 7 PM.
And on the 4th?
And on the 4th, it's 6:30.
6:30. And Tammy's saying it's 7 on the 2nd and
And 8.
Did you say
8 on the
4.
4th. Tammy. Okay, yeah, it would allow us just 2 hours on the 2nd Tuesday.
Yeah.
Well, we could try to make,
Be a good
we could tackle at least the most important things that need to be dealt with. I mean, the insurance is one that I'm sure we'll have to talk about.
Is a 5 o'clock start time all right for you two over there who show up to an
It's
office?
all traffic dependent, to be honest.
So would you be able to do even a little bit earlier, maybe 4:30, or is that cut off too much of your workday?
Or does, Do you want to pick
Once-
a different night?
Once in a while, I can live with it. I don't know how you are, George.
Yeah, as long as it's not a regular diet of it, that's not too bad.
So for budget season, we could do those couple of, starting at 4:30 or 5, whatever time you think we need, depending on the time you think we need, Steve.
Okay,
5 is easier than 4:30 for me.
okay, let's target 5 and plan on that on this, April 11 is what we're talking about then. Okay, and if for some reason we don't have the proposals ready for review, I'll talk to you again and we'll find another date for that.
All right.
So into May, you can see that I'm showing a budget work session on the 16th, but that would be a regular meeting night, and so you'd have that prior to your regular meeting. If you needed another one, you could possibly do it on the 23rd, which is a fourth Tuesday, but you'd have to start early again, it sounds like. But whether or not you need it, you can decide later. You could also have one prior to the public hearing on June 6th. That's another option, prior to a regular meeting.
Or maybe even that 5th Tuesday.
That's
in
true,
May.
there's be a fifth Tuesday in May, yeah.
Those precious
Okay.
fifth Tuesdays.
Or, so I'll write that in as a possibility, or May 30.
Anything else? Looks good.
I mean, we can flex on this as time goes on if we need to, but as a general calendar, you okay? Okay, all right.
Did you have any other items, Steve?
March 16, there's a workshop sponsored by the Wasatch Front. It's another one of this ongoing planning effort, regional planning effort pertaining to growth and transportation. Transportation particularly is the focus of this. So you might recall they've had several of these sub-area or area meetings within the region over the last couple of years, gathering data, developing scenarios, getting feedback on those scenarios, and now they're apparently down to like 3 scenarios that they want reaction from the city officials in each city along the Wasatch Front. So the one for our area is on March 16 at North Salt Lake City Hall from 4 to 6 p.m. I cannot be there, but I have got Corey's commitment to be there as a staff representative, but all city council members and all planning commissioners have been
When is that
invited.
again?
And I don't know whether you got an email on it or not directly. Do you remember getting an email?
I got invited, but
Yeah,
that,
I received that email numerous
Okay.
times, I think.
So you're all invited. I mean, it's not mandatory, but they're hoping to have at least a few from each city.
And where is it?
At the North Salt Lake City Hall, March 16. That's not this Thursday, but a week from Thursday, from 4 to 6 p.m.
Okay.
That's all I have, other than to mention the mayor's email. And we've actually attached that under miscellaneous business regarding the COG meeting, so if you have any,
That's good to have that into the record.
yeah.
All right. So, moving on to our, yeah,
Oh, go ahead. No, are we at miscellaneous business?
Yep.
Okay.
Do you have an item that you want to cover
I-
before we jump in?
No, I just mentioned to Lisa, and I wanted to make sure all of you had heard that SB 81 looks to make it so that we can't collect taxes or business license fees from home businesses that don't impact the neighbors. And I don't know how much of our budget is dependent on that, but if that does get signed, then that needs
Yeah,
to be taken
it's,
into
I had a
consideration.
conversation with Corey earlier when I heard about this a few weeks back and asked him how much of our license revenue is that. It's not a big chunk.
Oh, good.
The league, I think, initially the cities through the league were pushing back on this, but there was pretty strong support and sentiment from legislators on this, I presume because they've heard from their constituents. Why are cities charging a fee, a business license fee for a home occupation if there's no impact in the neighborhood? So my recollection is the league lobbyists were saying, this is probably the best we can do. We're not going to win this one to push back totally against it, but let's try to get it limited, the waiver limited to those businesses that have no impact, those home occupations that have no impact, so that we can still deal with and require a license of those home occupations that do have some kind of impact. So that's the direction the bill went, and it was a compromise. And there's a few $1,000s there probably, but I think our total business license revenue is like $65,000 or so.
Okay, okay, great.
Did you?
Yeah, the language is pretty odd as far as being able to quantify. It actually says unless the combined offset impact of the home-based business and the primary residential use materially exceeds the offsite impact of the primary residential use alone. I don't know how you're going to evaluate that, and it just seems like
It does look,
it's probably revenue that's just going to disappear, because if anyone wants to argue that, it's just going to become so problematic to figure out how that is interpreted.
You would have to quadruple the fee.
All right. Well, we'll
Yeah,
talk
it may
about that.
boil down to, in our case, I think our code, correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, says that if there's some thresholds in our ordinance that if they meet those thresholds, then they have to actually go through a process with the planning commission, don't they? The CUP. And so it may boil down to those will have to pay a fee and all other home occupations won't.
All right.
should be interesting.
Okay, so we are in miscellaneous business, and the first item there is to talk about the UDOT cooperative agreement for pedestrian flags at Main Street crosswalks. So this is exciting.
Those are two crosswalks.
Resolution number 2017-07.
50 South and 550 South, which I think is right there by the seminary, the junior high and seminary.
And the 50 South one was the one that we were maybe afraid they were going to take away when they
Yeah,
reevaluated
and I'm
things.
not, I can't say for certain that they
I'm
won't
glad
at
to hear that.
some point, because I haven't heard whether they've done a study of that, a review, and I think they may have just given in and decided, okay, well, go ahead and do it.
I stop for pedestrians at that one more often than any other than at school time.
The scary thing to me is you just don't see them there. I mean, I've slammed on my brakes more than once thinking, I don't know where you came from.
I had a wheelchair user just like 1 or 2 days ago that I stopped for, so.
So I think that would be a big asset to have that. And the
The
same there at
flags
the
there.
school, because a lot of people are focusing beyond the crosswalk. I think the flags would be great.
Yes.
Now, it's not the crosswalk where you actually have an official school
Right.
crossing,
I'm the only
because they won't let us do it
I'm the only
there.
one that gets a flag there.
The seminary
Yeah,
building one.
yeah, by the seminary building. This
Well,
is,
the 550 one.
Right.
And then the 50 South one
Right.
is the, yeah.
right.
Okay, so we would need to adopt that resolution number 2017-07.
I just had one comment. I just want to make sure that the council understands with this, we are taking on legal liability if anything happens. UDOT is requiring us to indemnify them from any liability or legal action resulting from the installation, and we're also required to maintain those, so.
Right. But we do have them on several of our own streets, as you probably realize, and so, yeah.
I was waiting for Robin to
I
make
was
that
too. I
motion.
think this is Robin's deal.
This is yours.
Can I so moved?
Sure.
Yes. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so our final item on our agenda for tonight is that we need to go into a closed meeting
The county proposal?
For that purpose.
for that purpose. To discuss the sale or purchase of real property. And I think that our desire could be to close our open meeting, adjourn our open meeting before we go into that closed meeting and not have to come back out. We're not going to take any action, just discuss.
Yeah, so I think I could explain this in open meeting right now, and that is that the county discussed the terms in a closed meeting and have not discussed it in an open meeting. They
Discuss
want
the
us to
terms of the 100 South property,
Right,
to be
right.
clear.
And so they want us to discuss it in a closed meeting, and then reps of the city meet with reps of the county, see if if there's,
We agree.
there's some agreement, and then there would be
Open meeting
open
discussion.
meeting action, documents drafted relating to it, action taken in an open meeting at some point.
All right.
So there's no need to come back out in a public meeting tonight.
So I move that we adjourn our open meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wait, you have to vote to go into the closed session in the
First.
open meeting.
No,
Okay.
I was going to be done. I was